Welcome to Pondering Prose, where we cultivate conscious conversation and connections about creativity. Sponsored by Our Galaxy Publishing. Hi, and welcome to Pondering Prose. Today we welcome author Faye Rapoport DesPres to the conversation. Faye, thank you for joining me today.
Thank you for having me.
So we unofficially met on Twitter, and I'm just going to say that is by far the best writing community so far that is out there for anybody joining. So do you feel the same?
I've definitely made a lot of connections on Twitter. It's been fantastic. So I agree with that.
Yes. So one of the questions that I really want to pick your brain about is you have a few different books out there on Amazon and available. What's your ultimate go-to writing tool? Like, what do your process?
Well, I write on a computer, and I have a lot of writing colleagues who firmly believe in handwriting. And I do see the value in that. I have to say, when I write by hand with a pen and paper, it slows me down, it slows my thinking process down, and I pick my words a little bit more carefully. And when I was writing personal essays, I definitely felt that some of the essays were stronger if I wrote by hand. However, I've been writing with a computer for, well, I won't say how many years, and I can type. I never look at the keyboard. I can probably type faster than I think. So for me, it feels very natural to type on a keyboard. So my normal tool is a keyboard, whether it's a desktop computer or a laptop or an iPad with a keyboard. That's normally what I write with. I do have a notebook. I have pen and paper and notebook nearby, and sometimes I do jot down ideas, but I'm not one of those writers who is constantly jotting down ideas and notes and waking up and writing down dreams. I totally admire that process, but for me, it's really sitting down in front of the computer, looking at the monitor and starting to write. And in terms of process, I'm kind of an anomaly from what a lot of people advise in terms of writing. Some people say you must write every single day. And I do have to say that if you write every single day, that's a very positive thing. But I'm not one of those writers. There are times when I don't write for days at a time, and I have to kind of force myself to get back to it. That's an honest thing. But what I do is I get up early every morning. I sit with a cup of coffee before the day gets started. Often it's still dark outside. And I just have that kind of quiet time to myself. And if nothing is coming to me in terms of my creative writing, I usually journal. I've been writing diaries since I was a really small child. And so for me, the whole journaling process, it's similar to what some people do with morning pages or free writing, because it's just more free. You're not worried about, is this any good? Am I writing anything literary? You're not censoring yourself or editing yourself with that editor on the shoulder they're always talking about. You're just kind of allowing yourself to express your thoughts, get sentences on the page. And I like that process a lot. It's very relaxing for me, and it helps me process a lot of thoughts. But when it comes to the actual creative writing, I really have to sit down and focus and make that my project. So it's a very varied thing for me.
Do you plan, like, do you write out notes beforehand, or there's a term for this? It's a pantser or a planner, a plotter. I'm not 100% sure.
Plotter versus pantser.
Yeah.
Who plots out with an outline, and someone who just kind of writes by the seat of their pants and lets the flow happen. And I've never been a strong outline person, but it depends so much on the type of writing you do. I happen to write in several different genres. I've written a lot of creative nonfiction essays. I've written fiction, short fiction. I've written some longer fiction. I've written microfiction, and I've also written poetry. And so the process and sort of whether you would think in advance or plan in advance is so different for each different type of writing. I think if I were trying to write a novel, I would probably need some kind of plan or idea or structure in advance. Although the, National
NaNoWriMo,
yes, I've actually done that a couple of times, and I have to say it's a valuable exercise. The way I did it was free writing. I
Yeah.
sat down each day and I just poured out a bunch of words without worrying about grammar or structure, but sticking with the same story and trying to let that story kind of flow onto the page and become something. And that was a great exercise. But interestingly, I got an award-winning short story out of that
Oh.
50,000 word novel. I pared it way down after the month was done into something much shorter. So I guess I'm getting away from your question, but
No,
I
because
tend to be,
this
yeah,
all goes to that process, that, that
yes,
creative process that's so important for others to hear how other writers, how they use that creative process,
I'm
in
not
their
good
own
at
stuff.
planning. I'm not good at the outlining, planning. I tend to, when I start to write, things tend to happen on the page and I try to let them go where they were intended to. So that tends to be my process.
Do you have expectation with the inspiration, the creative inspiration that you get when you're writing?
I have learned that if you wait to be inspired, you could be waiting for a really long time. So I'm very much of the thinking of, the teachers and that talk about morning pages or free writing or just allowing words to come out, even if you're just right. And I tell this to my students all the time, even if you're just writing, I have no idea what to say. I have no idea what to write. I have to keep writing because the timer is still on. You'd be surprised. Eventually you do begin to have ideas. I think I have to be honest and say that my best writing happens when I do have some sort of inspiration first. There's no doubt about it. If I, wake up in the morning and I just have an idea and I know that that's something that I want to write or write about, that is the time when at least my initial drafts are the best. But if I waited for that to happen, as it is, I haven't written a lot of stuff compared to a lot of writers. So I absolutely can't wait for that inspiration. I have to push it a little. And that sometimes comes with either free writing or journaling, or there was a time, and I'll talk about the book that's coming out later, but I needed to write small pieces every day. And I would literally lie in bed at night or in the morning before I got up and say, I can't get up until I have an idea for today's piece. And I would just sit there and think and run through ideas in my head until something came to me. And then I'd let myself get up and get started.
That's interesting. Like, do you feel that living life is the best way to get that inspiration?
Yeah, I
Yeah.
really do. And it's interesting because a lot of emphasis, I think, is put on, the bright young stars of the literary world and, people who write, some sort of award-winning novel when they're in their 20s or in their 30s, you know, as if somehow older writers have missed the boat or, aren't as talented or aren't sort of somehow the next big thing.
I don't buy that either.
I don't subscribe to that at
No,
all.
no.
Especially with creative nonfiction, which is what I focused on in my MFA, and which is what my first book was. I think you need life experience, and not just do you have richer material from having a lot of life experience, but I think as you age, you also kind of gain perspective and knowledge on how to interpret that experience. Especially in creative nonfiction, it's very, there's the famous Vivian Gornick's book, The Situation and the Story. And the idea that there's the situation, there's what happened, but then there's the story behind that situation, or what kind of meaning do you give to those events? And I think having more life experience gives us a little bit more, maybe just some more tools in how to find meaning in everyday events, or how
Yes.
to sort of expand their meaning or assign meaning to them, or just kind of think about why things happen and how they've affected us and how they've changed us. And I think that makes the writing richer, whether it's nonfiction or fiction.
I agree. How do you feel pursuing writing has made you a better version of yourself?
I thought a lot about this question when you sent it to me, and I think what I came to was, a lot of people say, well, this is what I was put here to do. And so somehow it fulfills me to be doing what I was meant to do. For me, there's some truth to that, but I mean, there's definitely some truth to that. I feel that when I'm writing, it feels like the most natural thing that comes to me as sort of, what my skills, whatever sort of way my brain works comes together in I guess the way, I don't know if it was meant to or just the way it works best. And certainly when we're doing things that we feel good about, that we are skilled at, I think it gives us a sense of confidence, and it gives us a sense of fulfillment. So in that sense, I was very incecure as a young person for a wide variety of reasons. And I think my level of self-esteem and security has increased the more I've focused on something that I feel good about, that I care about, that I'm passionate about, that I have skill at. But that skill was hard won. I worked really hard at it. So part of sort of how it's changed me, or helped me be a better version of myself, is that it allowed me to find things within myself that I felt good about. Things within myself that not only I feel good about because I have some skill at them, but also because they do good for others. I think one of the most rewarding things about Message from a Blue Jay that's my first book, was that some of the readers who read it wrote to me and said, I finally don't feel alone in some of the things that I've been through, or some of the things that I feel. And the fact that I gave that sense of being understood or not being alone to someone else, that was by far the most rewarding aspect of it to me. For me, the whole, how many, I don't know, reviews do you have, or what your royalties are, I don't think about that. I think about the people who just really are get something positive out of what I do. And my next 3 books were children's books about stray cats.
I love them too.
And and I don't want to sound wrong, but some people might look down on that a little bit, or think, well, this isn't, you're not winning the Pulitzer Prize or something like that. But it sounds funny, but one of the cats featured in the book has a Facebook page. She's a real cat who I live with, a feral cat. And she has almost 5,000 fans. And some of those people write to me and say, I come to this page every day because it makes me feel so good. And they pour out their love and their hope into this cat. And to me, what's better than that?
Yeah.
I mean, what could make me feel better about myself than feeling like I've made other people feel better? So I guess in that sense, that part of writing, I think, has changed me for the better, because it's given me that sense of having a place in the world where I'm doing something positive. So
I love it. Absolutely. That's great. What are your thoughts about writer's block?
I think writer's block comes from a place of I should be doing this. Why? Why should you be doing this? Who is pressuring you to do this? Is it you? Is it some outside force? Is it some expectation of yourself, or some expectation of other people? I think when we sit down and think, I should be writing right now, I should have an idea, I should have some inspiration, I should write 1,000 words today, I think it just creates so much anxiety, And so for me, if there is a writer's block, if there's a situation where someone's feeling like they can't write, so don't write. Don't write that day. Don't write that morning. Give yourself a break. Don't be hard on yourself. Let go of those expectations. If it goes on for too long and you feel like, well, I really would like to write something, then sit down and write something. I think so much of it comes from this expectation, this incredible anxiety that we have to be good, that we have to write daily, that we have to produce something now. Of course, it's different in academics when you actually have deadlines, or if you have a publisher that has deadlines. But in those cases, okay, so let go of the idea that it has to be good and just let yourself be a little bit, be a little easier on yourself. Write some crap, write something bad, write something stupid, write something you're going to throw out or delete in 5 minutes. I think when we lose the fun, when we lose the freedom, when we, build in this idea that we have to be, that we should be this or that, I think it's just that anxiety that stops us.
I love that. I love that. No one said that. That's perfect. No, it really, but it makes 1,000% sense, right? Like, why do you have to do that right now? I feel bad for the writers that they take that and then they put it, well, I can't write today, I must be crap, like I'm not a writer anymore because I can't write today, and it's a mindset, right? Like, who says you're not a writer? You just because you didn't write today. What is something you would say to an aspiring writer to help them out as to not give up their dreams of being an author?
Yeah, I've talked about the fact that it's hard to think of new advice to give to writers or young writers because there is so much advice out there. And a lot of it is, a little bit cliche, don't give up, write every day, all of those kinds of things. But I did have a writing teacher who really, really stressed the fact that there are a lot of talented writers, but it's the writers who persist that end up being whatever your version of successful is. And successful means very different things to very different people and very different writers. But I do think there's some truth to that, to just the whole idea that, yes, you're going to get a lot of rejection. All writers do. Yes, you're going to have frustrating days. Yes, you're going to have days or weeks or months when you don't feel like doing this. But it's the writers who persist. It's those who just keep practicing. And I like to think of it as a practice, kind of like yoga or meditation. It's a practice. And the more we practice something, the better we get at it. And so I think that would just be my advice, to let go of the expectations, let go of the fears of rejection, let go of this whole idea that you have to be good at it, and just persist. Make it your practice. Make it a lifelong effort to become better at something, to become the best you can be at something. Whether that's better or, quote, worse than anybody else just doesn't matter. The only thing that truly matters is, are you working hard to be the best that you can be at something? And that would be my advice. Focus on that. Focus on thinking of it as a practice, persisting with it, and thinking of it as something that you're doing for yourself because you enjoy it. And it's not always fun, that's for sure. But when it's not feeling fun, make it fun. Think of it as something you're doing for yourself and you're trying to be the best that you can be. And hopefully that will lead you where you want to go.
That's beautiful. That's amazing. Hey, thank you so much for speaking with us today. We really appreciate your time.
Thank you so much for having me. I hope it helps somebody out there. I hope it helps some writers out there. And I really appreciate you having me.
Thank you. Oh. Thanks for watching today's episode of Pondering Prose, sponsored by Our Galaxy Publishing. Don't forget to hit subscribe to be updated on our latest videos.